neighbours. Hang on a sec.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The webcast is now live. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet at Staffordshire County Council on today, Wednesday, the 17th of February 2021. Good morning to everybody. Agenda number one is apologies for absence. Mr. Bradbury, do we have any apologies for absence?
Good morning, Leader. No, I'm not in receipt of any apologies for this morning.
Agenda item number two is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order number 16. Do we have any declarations of interest? For the record, none have been indicated. We've got decision notices of the meetings held on the 20th of January 2021 and the 27th of January 2021. Can I have somebody to move in second, please?
I'll move those, Chairman.
Thank you. That's Councillor Jessel and Councillor Price. Moving on then to the Leaders' Update. Colleagues, what inspiring news to see the nation pass an important milestone this week, with the 15 million most vulnerable people in the UK offered their first vaccination against COVID-19. A significant majority of those 15 million have had their first jab at least. Here in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, the rollout has been exceptional. More than 250,000 jabs delivered, including 96% of our over 80s, 98% of our 75 to 79-year-olds and 76% of our over 70s. A huge thank you to the army of NHS staff, volunteers and many others, including our own county council colleagues from our property department, our librarians and many, many more who are making this happen at breathtaking speed. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we await the Prime Minister's announcements next Monday on our roadmap out of the pandemic. However, the news of a Stafford case of the South African variant is a warning against complacency and a reminder that everyone, including people who have had their jab, need to stay the course and stick to the rules. For adults in Stafford Borough, this means getting yourself tested in the coming weeks, and we continue to urge anyone in Staffordshire who needs to go out and about, for instance, to work, to book a regular test at one of our many community testing centres. No one here on Cabinet underestimates how tough this lockdown is for individuals, parents and families, business and workers right across Staffordshire. In this time of huge stress, we all need to look after our mental and physical health and look out for loved ones and friends too. That's why the County Council's Do It to Feel Good campaign is offering loads of useful hints and tips on keeping active and staying healthy in body and mind. Search on the County Council website to find out more. I'm also delighted that Staffordshire has secured £1.5 million from government last week to protect the victims of domestic abuse and their children. It will fund vital support to protect Staffordshire people from this terrible crime. I'm also really pleased to see today's agenda include a new loan scheme for rural businesses. It's the latest in our extensive package of support for Staffordshire businesses during the pandemic to help them bounce back and return to profit quickly and sustainably. Schemes such as Staffordshire 500, promoted heavily during last week's National Apprenticeship Week, offering incentives to business to create a route into work for 500 16 to 24-year-olds. And so, ladies and gentlemen, on to our agenda for the morning. First of all, we have the agenda item number 5, which is minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 3rd of February 2021. Can I have somebody to move those, please?
Yeah, propose we move them, Chairman.
Thank you. For the record, that was Councillor DeVille. And seconded?
Seconded, Chairman.
That was Councillor Williams. Agenda item number 6 is the update from the COVID-19 member-led Outbreak Control Board. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Leader. We've seen significant improvement in the numbers of COVID recently. They're coming down in all areas. In some areas in the south, it's less of a pace than we would than is the case nationally, but it's all going in the right direction. And that's thanks to the residents of Staffordshire abiding by the rules and maintaining space, wearing masks and hand hygiene, and we're truly grateful for that. We did, as the leader said, meet the Prime Minister's vaccination target, and we're truly grateful to everybody who's played a part in that. And I've been assured by our NHS senior colleagues that in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, by the end of this week, we'll comfortably be over the 300,000 mark for vaccinations. And that would be a truly great feat. We have reasonable assurance that the rate limiting factor, as the Secretary of State calls it, will be the supply of the vaccine, not our ability in Staffordshire to deliver it. And that's where we want to keep the logistics and the scale of what we're doing here. We're now on to priorities 5 and 6, which is those between the ages of 65 and 69, and those between the ages of 16 and 64 with underlying health conditions. So everything's going in the right direction. 300,000 within the first 11 weeks would be a feat indeed. The lateral flow testing, which is the asymptomatic people with no symptoms who are getting tested, is happening at scale, and we're very grateful for those who've come forward. We've got significantly more than 500,000 cases who didn't know they had COVID and have been able to self-isolate, and that's protected considerably more than 1,000 people from getting it, which reduces the burden of the disease in the community significantly. I would encourage all those who cannot work from home or have to go out and do the shopping to get a lateral flow test, such that we can keep this virus at bay. I know that some folk are worried about getting the test. They're worried about being positive. They're worried about the implications for their work. And I would ask those who are employers and senior managers in businesses to seriously consider supporting this venture, because you have a far greater chance of keeping your operation COVID free by getting your staff to have a test. So we have the technology, and the technology is really helping us with the vaccine and the lateral flow testing to keep asymptomatic transmission out of our community. But that cannot lead to complacency, unfortunately. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but the party time has not yet arrived, and I would strongly advise people to stick to the rules of hands, face and space. The Local Outbreak Control Board is also looking at the implications of COVID, not just keeping COVID at bay, and we are having a close look at the mental health implications, which we understand are significant, and we will do all we can to help those in our community to be better and to look forward to coming out of this. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. A comprehensive briefing there. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'd just like to reiterate my praise to the teams, all the work that is going on, and really strongly encourage people to come forward for vaccinations if you are identified as somebody who is appropriate to be vaccinated. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Dr. McMahon, for an extremely comprehensive report. And if I may, Chairman, thank you, Dr. McMahon, for all your efforts as well. You're right. This is a real team effort. And as a result of this team effort, the indicators are, thankfully, heading in the right direction. As you said, Mr. McMahon, the vaccination programme is the real game changer. And I think the reaction to this programme within Staffordshire has been remarkable. So also, absolutely no room for complacency whatsoever. You know, we've seen the effects of this dreadful virus, and we've seen the many tragedies across the county and across the country that this virus has left behind. So no complacency whatsoever, Leader. However, I wait with great anticipation. I really look forward to the Prime Minister's announcements on the 22nd around a plan where we can safely return to some form of normality. And I think the most important word there, Chairman, is safely return to some form of normality. Because I think, as you mentioned earlier, Leader, massively in Staffordshire, massive majority, 99.9% of people have really adhered to the rules. They've done the right thing, the right things for the past 12 months. And people really need to see some light at the end of the tunnel. They really need to see a definitive plan of getting back to some form of normality. And I really agree with Dr. McMahon. Thank everyone who's been involved with the response to this dreadful virus over the last 12 months, and really look forward to the Prime Minister's announcements on Monday, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to echo those words that Councillor DeVille said, and thank Dr. Donny McMahon and as well Dr. Richard Harling. I had the pleasure yesterday of visiting one of the local vaccination centres with our local MP, Theo Clark, and I was blown away, as I was and have been all the way through this pandemic, of the small army of volunteers that we've had that are working throughout all our centres, the immunisation centre and the testing centres as well. And without those, we would not be in the position that we are in now. So I just thought that it was poignant to say thank you to everybody that's given up their time, no matter how short or how long they've been out to make sure that we could get this first round of vaccines delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Price. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, Dr. McMahon, for the update. It's good to see the light at the end of the tunnel starting to appear, and it's really good to hear about how we're continuing to handle things so very well in Staffordshire. I thought I'd just share a tiny snippet from an email. It's one of a number of communications I've had from various people, some I know and some who wanted to get in touch with me as their local councillor about their experiences. And it's just a brief line to say, my husband and I had our COVID-19 jabs today at Uttoxeter Racecourse. It was a fantastic experience, ! The organisation inside and out in the freezing cold was exceptional. Everyone was friendly and helpful. We were in and out before our appointed times, and my jab was given to me by my dentist from 20 years ago, who recognised me even with my face mask on. A brilliant Staffordshire effort. And I just think it's worth sharing those sort of experiences. As councillors, we often get to hear about when things don't go so well, and it is wonderful that the experience seems to be consistently across the board an excellent experience with this. My one question, Dr. McMahon, is with the success that we've been having in Staffordshire, and I think it's recognised that we have delivered very effectively during the last year. What steps will we be taking to involve ourselves in any pilot schemes to try and get our economy and our society up and running more swiftly? I think we've proven that we can handle things well, And I'm keen that if there are early opportunities for Staffordshire people to get out and about and on with their normal lives sooner, if we step forwards, that we are doing that. And I'd be keen to know your thoughts about that.
Councillor McMahon, could you answer that question, please?
Thank you. There are pilots in the sense that we are working closely with the NHS in order to deliver a more integrated mental health response to the pandemic, such that when people come out of the lockdown and we see the true damage to people's lives, we are there ready to respond. And I think that will be a huge benefit. We're getting ourselves prepared to be able to help people when they come out of COVID, and I think that's the most important thing we're doing at the moment. And we will pilot that in certain primary care networks before moving on. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor McMahon. Thank you for the update, and colleagues, thank you for your comments. That concludes agenda item number 6. I'm now going to move on to agenda item number 7, and this is a verbal update. Staffordshire means back to business, and it's delivered to us this morning by the Deputy Leader, Councillor White.
That's great. Thank you very much, Leader. And as is our usual running order at these meetings now, I think it's entirely appropriate that the economic response follows the public health response. They are the two key challenges that COVID brings to us. And just as I think we can say with some clarity that Staffordshire has been delivering very well in terms of the public health response, I'm pleased to say that our economy continues to be quite resilient in the face of the challenges that COVID has brought. And I think those challenges were really hammered home last week when we had the announcement about the annual drop in GDP in 2020 nationally, down 9.9% compared to 2019 due to the pandemic. The good news is that economists are predicting that the economy will bounce back very quickly this year. I think the Bank of England said that it was. I think they literally used the term that it was like a coiled spring, which is rather unlike the Bank of England to use terms like that. So there is huge optimism that with the success of the vaccine programme, and wonderful to hear that in Staffordshire we're hitting that 300,000 number, 15 million nationally, that there is that opportunity to reopen and regrow our economy quickly, and Staffordshire is in a good place to do that particularly effectively. In terms of some of the things that have been happening since we last met, we've had the very good news that ASOS, one of the best known fashion brands in the UK, is building a £90 million distribution centre in Staffordshire at Fradley Park near Lichfield, which will create 2,000 jobs over the next 3 years. And Pets at Home are relocating their headquarters and logistics hub to Stafford, which is a £48 million development with 1,200 jobs. And that's really important because one of the things that the COVID crisis has impacted on is employment. In Staffordshire, our unemployment rates are much lower than the national and regional averages, but still those jobs are enormously welcome, and it's a wonderful vote of confidence in the Staffordshire economy during these difficult times. In terms of reporting back on some of the work that the County Council is doing, I'm pleased to say that following the report at the last Cabinet meeting, where Cabinet authorised the Back to Business Investing in Our Economy initiatives, we've had commitments from our district and borough colleagues of over £3 million of support for the Staffordshire 500 Apprenticeship Wage Support Scheme, our nil-cost training for employers project, and our financial support for the costs of change in small businesses. That's only the start with that. There are governance processes at those district and borough authorities that mean that there'll be further announcements to come. But I think £3 million in pledges in the space of a few weeks is quite a feat, and it's a sign of the the effectiveness of the working that we have between the two tiers of local government in Staffordshire, the County Council and the districts and boroughs, and more of that to come. In terms of looking after the redevelopment of our county town in Stafford, we're playing our part here too, and I'm pleased to say that we have taken ownership of the former Magistrates building in Stafford as part of the regeneration of the Eastgate Quarter in Stafford that the County Council is leading. That's a really important scheme. Anybody who knows Stafford well will know that former Magistrates building. It is in dire need of something else being done with that site. We're getting on with that as part of regenerating that area of the town. And it's great news that that will be happening in conjunction with the £20 million of investment that the Borough Council is making, particularly for a successful future High Streets Fund bid to regenerate the town centre in general. Also, in a similar vein, we're working very closely with our colleagues in Newcastle, Kidsgrove, Tamworth and Burton on their future High Street Fund and town deal bids, which will bring considerably further and greater investment in regenerating those town centres. In terms of other work, our extension of I-54 continues. That's being delivered successfully on budget and ahead of time during the COVID crisis, working with our partners at South Staffordshire and the City of Wolverhampton councils. We have some very interesting discussions going on there with a major new occupier for the site, which I'm hoping I'll be able to bring you further details of soon, but it's still commercially sensitive, but that work is ongoing. I'm also pleased to say that our Staffordshire Startup Scheme, providing funding and mentoring for new business startups, is now over 150 entrepreneurs signed up to receive support through that scheme for setting up their own businesses. And our Startup Business Loan Scheme is now operational, and loans are being made to startup businesses as we speak. So there's a lot there, but more to come, because as we reopen our economy, there is the need for the public sector to continue to provide support where it's appropriate. The leader mentioned in his introduction a scheme that we will be signing off on in the next few weeks, which is a scheme focused on financing for small businesses in rural areas, where we will be providing grants of between £10,000 and £50,000 to businesses outside of our towns, in conjunction with Stoke-on-Trent City Council and the Black Country Reinvestment Society. Again, an indication of how we do these things best in partnership with others. And that will be a fund of £2 million, which will provide loans to many businesses of that type. We're also working to develop our plans for supporting the reopening of our leisure, tourism and hospitality sectors. And I hope to be able to report back to Cabinet on that in the next meeting of this Cabinet, where we have some plans to significantly enhance our investment and our focus on those areas. I will leave things there, I think, because that's quite a run through. Hopefully it demonstrates how we are making sure, as always, that we are offering additionality, supporting the schemes that central government provide that benefit our area, and making sure that we get the full benefit for our citizens, and also working with our partners locally to make sure that we're supporting their actions in their districts and boroughs, but also adding in that Staffordshire layer. I'd be delighted to take any questions from colleagues, but as you can see, there is a great deal of work and a great deal of success, I'm pleased to say, as we support our businesses to do what they do best, which is generating jobs and generating economic activity for Staffordshire.
Thank you, Councillor White. I've got Councillor DeVille, Councillor Jessel and Councillor Sutherland to start off with.
Chairman, thank you. And thank you, Mr. White. What a breath of fresh air. As usual, Philip, Staffordshire people, we've endured so much over the past 12 months, the whole of the country has. But Staffordshire, we're doing what we do best. We're getting on with it, aren't we? We do see a better tomorrow, to coin a phrase of a very, very, very famous and massively respected gentleman. Tomorrow will be a better day, and we're preparing for that. In Staffordshire, we don't bury our heads in the sand, and having faced the 12 months that we have faced, it would be fairly easy to want to bury your head in the sand. We don't. They are great initiatives, Mr. White. Thank you very much. And it's refreshing and extremely encouraging to see large companies wanting to come into Staffordshire and join the Staffordshire economy. I think it's even better to see the work that you and your team are doing around the thousands of small businesses in the county. Because as we often say, the small businesses are the lifeblood of our county's economy. And I think the small businesses have taken the biggest hit during the recent last 12 months. Very sadly, some of them won't recover. I think heartwarmingly, many of them will. And I think that the future is bright. I was encouraged to hear the comments of the Governor of the Bank of England myself. As a small businessman in Staffordshire, I rather think that growth this year will be gradual. And I'm really enthusiastic and think that there'll be considerable growth during 2022. And I'm really pleased to hear of your future plans regarding the leisure, tourism and hospitality industry, because I think that industry needs assistance, needs that leg up into the future more than other industries. And I declare the necessary interest in that matter. So great news, great initiatives, and I warmly welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. I'd like to reinforce those comments and ask Councillor White if he would pass on my thanks to him and his team. I think they've done a superb job in identifying the opportunities to complement national schemes, to fill those gaps, to make sure that we're helping where help is needed, to actually encourage and empower our local businesses to get back on their feet, new businesses to set up. And I think it's really heartening. And I think we all need that assurance, the people that we represent, that Staffordshire County Council is looking and planning for the future, and that future's bright. And I think that's a really important message at this time of year. I also welcome the developments in terms of support for the rural economy. I think sometimes we forget that Staffordshire is a predominantly rural county, and I'm sure that will be really welcomed. There are opportunities, there are people wanting to set up their businesses, and if this helps them on that road, I think that is very much to be welcomed. There are just two points I'd like to raise. I don't expect an answer, but I know Philip is very keen to always be looking for new things that we can do to help to support the economy in Staffordshire. One is there were announcements from Jaguar Land Rover earlier this week in terms of their move to 100% electric in a very short timescale by 2025, is what impact that may have on their activities on I-54, and I'm sure that Philip and his team will be looking at that, what opportunities there may be there. But also, I am aware that particularly smaller companies are struggling with the bureaucracy of exporting to Europe at the moment. I think perhaps exacerbated by some countries wanting to make things a little bit difficult, is whether there's an opportunity perhaps to work with the Chambers of Commerce to make sure that people can access that advice, help them to get to grips with the new systems. I'm sure it's probably a transitional thing, But I think if there is an opportunity for us to help that transition, it would be welcomed, as I say, particularly by small businesses. I think the big businesses have probably got it fairly well sorted. But I am aware some of the smaller ones who do export to Europe are finding it perhaps a little bit difficult. And as I say, anything we can do in that respect, I'm sure would be very welcome. But I think a superb report. It gives me heart. It makes me proud in Staffordshire. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
Good morning and thank you, Leader. Just really to reiterate some of what's been said, but for me, there's two-pronged, very welcome news. Big businesses coming into Staffordshire at a critical time for us, 90 million investment, 48 million investment, but then equally the small businesses, the work that this county, through you, Philip, and the teams, are doing with the districts and boroughs. That is critical because it's getting us back on our feet. So it's truly welcome news that we're centre of both regeneration and if you like, getting small start-up businesses going. I could go on, but just to say that I believe that the focus of this council, through you and your team, has been magnificent, particularly in the last 6 to 9 months. And so for me, it's the local partnership working at its best. And I thank you for your important update today. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Leader. Mr. White, I want to thank you for all the effort you're putting into this critical agenda. I'm heartened by the large companies that are coming into the county and the support that we as a county council are giving smaller businesses. The dignity of earning your own living cannot be underestimated. The social networking of being able to work is clearly good for one's mental health, and because we are social beings after all. And the pride of being able to establish a career is so important. We as an administration do not believe in silos, and all I can say is that the more you are doing, the more you are helping the mental health of and the morale of the county, and for that I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Finally, Councillor Sutton, then I come back to you, Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning to everybody. Well, can I just say how much I welcome this excellent report from Mr. White and the opportunities there in going forward. The very best way that we can ensure that the future of the children, particularly within our county, are the very best is through having good economic development and a good strategy around this, so that they have that opportunity for a good job. They will have something to aspire to in the future, and also that we will then be able to ensure that we have the finances to be able to pay for a good children's services and other services for children and for others throughout the whole of the county.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Councillor White, back to you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, colleagues, for those comments. I'll just pull out a couple of them, and I'll answer the questions that were asked as well. So, firstly, on behalf of my officer team, thank you very much for the thanks to them. When I'm working with them, I'm reminded of one of my favourite TV programmes when I was growing up, Record Breakers, and I particularly think about people who did things like plate spinning world records and things like that, because my goodness, our team could go for one of those world records with the number of initiatives that they are delivering successfly, not a single plate or smashed during that process. So the thanks to them are well deserved, and I know that one or two of them will be watching this, and I hope they feel proud of the work that they're doing. To Dr. McMahon's point regarding our joined up working, that is absolutely the Staffordshire way. We've talked a lot about our partnership working with others, but our partnership working within our organisation between different bits of the county council is something that we don't talk about a lot, because hopefully people in the outside world don't see those moving parts, but it does not happen by accident, and those linkages are essential. And amongst those, that linkage between work and good health, both physical and mental, is one of the most important, I believe, and Dr. McMahon can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it is one of the prime determinants of good health, both physically and mentally, that you are in employment. If you have a job, your chances of being well are so much greater, and it is so very important that we make sure that people have those opportunities in Staffordshire. In terms of the specific questions regarding exporting to Europe, there's been considerable work going on for some time preparing for exiting the European Union. Obviously very good news that we got the certainty in terms of how that would happen just before the turn of the year. The advice that I would give to any business that is concerned about that is to contact the Staffordshire Growth Hub, which is where we, along with other organisations such as the Local Enterprise Partnership and the Chambers of Commerce, come together to provide advice to businesses, and there is a specialist team there that is focused on exporting and that can advise Staffordshire businesses about how to do that effectively at this time. We'll be able to continue to do that as our exporting arrangements with the European Union hopefully settle down into a steady state. Regarding the question of electric vehicles, yes, it's great news that Jaguar Land Rover, one of our champion Staffordshire and Midlands businesses, is moving to all electric, and we are already in discussions with them about what that might mean for Staffordshire and the opportunities we have here. And it brings me on to what were going to be my closing remarks in any event, which is that colleagues will have seen over the course of the last year that we have moved through the gears from responding to the crisis in terms of putting support in for our businesses immediately where they need it, to looking now at the reopening of our economy and that rebound that we all expect to see, and that we intend to make sure that we do everything we can to enhance for Staffordshire. But the third part of that is the future, and it's looking at how we reform our economy and take the opportunities that are to come. And electric vehicles are a great example of that, as indeed is hydrogen power, which is, in my opinion, the technology that will come after batteries. And that is just in one part of our economy and one part of activity. And so what I will hopefully take colleagues through over the rest of this year in further reports to Cabinet is our work in terms of turning to the future and how we exploit those opportunities for Staffordshire businesses and for the betterment of our part of the world. So with that, thank you, colleagues, and I look forward to giving you another report at our next Cabinet meeting.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor White. Excellent work by you and your teams. We're moving on now to agenda item number 8, which is the Climate Change Strategic Development Framework. Councillor Jessel, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet support for this Climate Change Strategic Framework. It is deliberately, by design, a high-level document that is key to ensure that we take action and not just words. And I think it's so important that it's what we do, not only us as an organisation, but our influence and working with communities and individuals. It is a framework that builds on the previously very good work done as a consequence of the strategy that was adopted in 2011, the Green Shoot Strategy, and actually now sets out how we achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It sets out our vision and establishes our key principles. It allows us to empower our staff to come up with ideas as to how we can address our carbon emissions, but also working with members and with other organisations, communities and individuals. It also allows us to innovate and to adapt emerging technologies, which is so important. Councillor White has just mentioned the move to battery-powered cars and then potentially hydrogen-powered vehicles coming on stream. Technologies are emerging. We need to be adaptable and fleet of foot to maximise those and maximise the potential that it has for Staffordshire and the emerging green economy. In 1990, as an organisation, we were emitting 173,000 tonnes of CO2. Now, that baseline has changed. It didn't include certain elements of our activities like waste management and home to school transport. And it did include a far greater proportion of school emissions. As time has gone on and with academisation, that baseline has changed significantly. And in 2018, there's the carbon reduction that we've done through introducing LED lighting, greater energy efficiency for buildings and reducing staff travel mileage. And we now emit in 2018-19 just over 50,000 tonnes. That takes into account that some school emissions are now not counted because they've become academies, but we've also included all our waste management emissions and school to home transport. It's anticipated that our next audit, and we now, as part of our annual action plan, we have an independent annual audit, so it's open and accountable as to what our current CO2 emissions are, and we anticipate that we've probably reduced another 15,000 tonnes. So we're making good progress, but I don't underestimate the further we get towards our target of net zero, the more difficult it will become. And it's very much steps along a journey rather than a short, quick fix. The strategy sets out a principle of action planning, and we have an annual action plan that was originally formulated with a working group of county councillors in November 2019. That action plan is the one we're currently working to. There will be an annual audit of our CO2 emissions so we can accurately measure our progress, and an annual report in June, July time so that we know what progress we're making and starting to refresh the next annual action plan. The strategy sets out the key 5 themes of reducing our own CO2 emissions as an organisation, improving air quality, improving the natural environment, waste, that's the 3 R's of reduce, recycle and reuse, and behaviour change, and that applies to all of us. And it's making people feel empowered that actually a small amount of change by all of us makes a huge difference collectively. It also sets out the spheres of influence. We are, by our nature, an organisation, a sizeable organisation, but we are able to influence by working closely with our partners, and we're hoping that by adapting the Joint Waste Management Board to a sustainability board, that will reuse an existing effective partnership arrangement with our local authority colleagues so that we can work collectively together. But it's working with private businesses, it's working with the voluntary sector, with communities and individuals. And as we know, in terms of communities, the action plan included setting up a climate change community fund, which has been very successful, supported by all sorts of groups and obviously by our own county councillors. The document itself does require some minor editing, and I do apologise for that you haven't got the final document, but on the basis of what we're setting out to achieve, the key principles, I believe that this is the document that I support, and I would thank Darryl Ayres and his team, Clive Thompson, Tim Cooper, They've worked extremely hard in a different way. It's not a traditional local authority strategic document, but it says what it needs to say, and it makes a clear statement to our organisation, but externally, that we are determined to play our part in addressing CO2 emissions and climate change. So on that basis, Leader, I would recommend that Cabinet notes and approve, subject to any final minor changes required by myself as Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, the Authority's Climate Change Strategic Development Framework document, notes the progress that's been made in reducing the Authority's carbon emissions since 1991, and notes the significant positive carbon reduction that has been made on the Authority's own carbon emissions since the declaration of the climate change emergency in July 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel, for that comprehensive briefing on the report. I just want to congratulate you as the Cabinet Member for Climate Change for the work, the outstanding work you've done in taking this agenda forward over the past 7 months. You've really embraced it. You've taken it forward in leaps and bounds, and I just want to thank you for all your efforts before I ask the Cabinet to approve the recommendations. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader, and can I thank Councillor Jessel for a fantastic report on a very, very important issue that we all want to support. Can I also thank her for the two different applications within my division of Penkridge that she supported with the community grant, which is going to enable these groups to work more efficiently and reduce their carbon footprint within the community. And I'd like to thank her for that initiative, and I think it's a great way forward. I have had a lot of interest in it, and I think that going forward, I think it will be a great way to help reduce the county's carbon footprint by utilising local groups to do so. Thank you very much, Councillor Jessel.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Jessel. That was a comprehensive report, and it again, I think, speaks to the joined-up nature of what we do here at the County Council. And this is absolutely an area that, although I suppose you could rightly say it will impact on every aspect of our lives, because climate change is such an important thing for the planet. If you look at the health and well-being of our citizens, and you look at the economic opportunities of the future, they're absolutely tied up in this agenda. So I just wanted to add my thanks and to just put a little marker down. And I know we've discussed this many times, and you agree that our climate change agenda and our approach to tackling this great challenge must not be a hair shirt. It must be an approach that also looks at the opportunities for Staffordshire and Staffordshire businesses, and there are many of them. And I know that we will work to make sure that we help our businesses to seize those and to profit from them, because doing the right thing shouldn't come at the expense of doing good business as well. And I hope that we'll be doing that.
Finally, Councillor Sutton, then we'll come back to Councillor Jessel to sum up.
Just quite, thank you, Leader. Just quite succinctly, really, I think it's fantastic that the County Council is taking such a lead in this and putting ourselves at the forefront of what is a really important matter. And it's good to see that the document, as the Cabinet member said, is not a long-winded 100 pages document, which it could easily have been in this fairly complicated arena, but it's short, to the point, and says exactly what we're going to do.
Thank you very much. Finally, Councillor Jessel, just to sum up, please.
Yes, it certainly says exactly what it says on the tin. I like that. Thank you very much. Yes, the Climate Change Community Fund has indeed been very successful, and we've now, I understand, got over 100 applications. Such a range of initiatives that have come forward from community groups, from schools, from parish councils, from carbon dioxide monitoring to tree planting, to encouraging people to use sustainable transport, bicycle racks. It really has been heartening, the enthusiasm that everybody has adopted. And I think it's so important. People don't react to being told they can't do this, they can't do that. What people do react to is to say, actually, you can make a difference, and it will make a difference. And I think Philip is absolutely right. Climate change is something that touches all of our lives. We ignore it at our peril, but we can do things. And I hope this document, this strategy, sets out that positive approach. And there are some real opportunities in terms of the economy. And I think, you know, we've got the right attitude, the right team leading the County Council to make sure we maximise that potential. So thank you very much for your kind comments, and I do hope the Cabinet supports these proposals.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Aye.
Any abstentions? The recommendation is approved. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Jessel. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda, agenda item number 9, which is implementation of the updated Staffordshire County Council Education Infrastructure Contributions Policy, which goes by an unpronounceable acronym, so I'm not even going to try. Councillor Price, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm glad you've said that as well, because I've been trying to practice that this morning and I failed miserably. So I will stick, unfortunately, with the full catchy title of the implementation of the updated Staffordshire County Council Education Infrastructures Policy. As you know, the County Council has a statutory duty to ensure that there are sufficient school places across Staffordshire and to provide free home to school transport for our eligible children. For many years, the County Council has used its existing Education Planning Obligations Policy, EPOP, to secure financial contributions and land for new and expanded mainstream schools using the current Section 106 agreements. In late 2019, the Department of Education published updated guidance to help local authorities secure developer contributions. The guidance referred to the cost of school transport and advised that it is reasonable and fair to seek developer contributions for special educational needs provision in addition to mainstream school places. Using the DFE guidance, a team of officers analysed, developed and consulted on an updated contributions policy. The consultation in late 2020 generated 7 responses, all of which were positive, and you can see those responses in the appendix in the back of the document. This updated contributions policy included a number of technical modifications and, importantly, would enable the County Council to request developer contributions for special educational needs and disability places and home to school transport to mainstream and upper special schools. Contributions can be sought only when necessary, e.g. when a school is full and cannot be guaranteed. For example, a developer could submit a viability assessment. That said, analysis by officers is that over the last 3 years, requests totaling around 5 million could have made for special educational needs and disability places. And over a 9-month period, requests totaling around 0.4 million could have been made for additional school transport or support for SEND transport. So in summary, this updated policy provides a carefully considered set of policy proposals to meet the government's objectives of ensuring that housing developers contribute to the cost of providing the new school places required due to housing growth, and that the County Council's responsibility to secure high quality school places and school transport for our children. I would therefore like to recommend to Cabinet that they approve the implementation of the updated Staffordshire Education Infrastructures Contribution Policy from the 1st of March 2021. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Price. A technical document, but an important one. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Price. Councillor White, did you want to say something before I move that recommendation?
if I can get myself off mute, I will. So I didn't want it to pass by without commenting on it. This is a really important. It's a really important piece of work. Although it's technical, it is something that our residents rightly expect us to do when new developments happen in their areas, which impact on their lives. They do expect that those developers set aside a proportion of their profits to make reasonable contributions. And education is, in my experience, right up at the top of that list. There has been an issue previously with looking at the totality of education, and particularly around special educational needs, and making sure that there is proper provision for that, and that isn't shaved off because you can't, within a particular development, evidence that there will be X number of children who may have those needs. And so this is a really important enhancement of our previous policies. And I just wanted to say well done to Jonathan for pushing this through. I know that it's something that you've personally been very committed to making sure that we get better at in Staffordshire, and I'm really pleased to see it come here today. And I'll be delighted to support it in a moment when we take a vote on it.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor White. Councillor Price, was there anything you wanted to say in addition before we go to the vote?
Yes, just briefly, please, Leader. I just wanted to obviously thank Andrew Marston and the officers that have helped me with this document and with all their support. And I would like, as I said, to recommend to the Cabinet that they approve this. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Price. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Aye.
Aye. Agreed.
Aye.
Agreed.
Any against? Any abstentions? The recommendation is approved. Thank you, Councillor Price. Don't go away. You're back on very shortly. Moving to the next item on the agenda, we have the SEND strategy. I know the actual title on the report is Special Educational Needs and Disability (SEND Strategy 2021-26). Councillor Price, I know that this has been a particular issue that's very, very close to your heart, and I'm delighted to see you bring it forward this morning. So I'm going to hand over to you to present the report.
Thank you, Leader. No, there's a lot of work has gone into this document. I'm really, really pleased to be bringing this before Cabinet today. Like many areas across the county, we know that in Staffordshire, we need to strengthen, develop and deliver services to meet the needs of children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, and particularly as well their parents and carers. Our SEND strategy sets out the high-level vision and the strategic aims for Staffordshire. It places children's outcomes at the forefront and has been endorsed by all of our stakeholders. We began by consulting with a range of professionals, parents and carers, young people and their families to support us with the development of our strategy. Working together is an important part of the strategy, and it was really important for us to start as we meant to continue. As the actions to deliver the strategy are developed, the partnership is committed to continuing to work with parents, carers and our children and young people to ensure we are taking the right actions to deliver our ambitions. Our ambition is simple. We want all children with special educational needs and disabilities to be able to reach their full potential by receiving the right support at the right time in our own communities. And that is the key point of this document. And that's within their local school or place of education. The success of this strategy depends on everybody working together, as Staffordshire is a large county with a mixed economy of education provision ranging from individual childminders, a variety of early years provision, small rural primary schools to large urban schools. The need of stakeholders reflects our diverse culture, but as with safeguarding, SEND is everybody's responsibility, and our strategy reflects this. We want our children, young people and their families to have the same great experience no matter where they live within Staffordshire. Our strategy provides the principles upon which our work will be based, particularly using the funding available to have pupils educated more inclusively and closer to home, while multiple groups can work together better for each child's benefit. The four principles, the key principles in the strategy, focus on effective partnership working, where everyone communicates well with each other so that children and young people with SEND and the families receive the right support at the right time. We want everyone to be an advocate for SEND so that there is a greater awareness of SEND wherever possible. We want children to access education provision closer to home, and community facilities and organisers of activities and holiday clubs are fully accessible for our SEND children. The aspirational model of the partnership will create an inclusive system where there are more children with SEND receiving SEND support in mainstream schools. Special schools will provide outreach support to mainstream schools that will allow mainstream schools to provide high quality support to children identified within their SEND needs. And I would therefore like to recommend to Cabinet that they note the update on the SEND strategy in light of the responses received during the consultation period, and approve the Staffordshire SEND strategy as the core vision and key priority areas that the County Council, along with the clinical commissioning groups and partners, including education and health providers, will use to drive our ambition for improving provision for our children and young people. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Price, and thank you to all your teams for all the effort they've done with this on this update. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Price, for that introduction there and overview of the SEND strategy. This is a really, really important part of what we do in our around children and families for the County Council and for all our partners. And the basis of what we are going to do going forward has to be in a really sound strategy that's been well looked into. It's been worked out with partners, and we have taken on board consultation from schools, parents, and everyone involved in this, which I know has been done. So I really, really welcome this, and thank you, Mr. Price, for your hard work and the hard work of the teams involved.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Price, any concluding remarks before we move to the vote?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say that Mark Sutton and the work around SEND work hand in hand with the work that he does with children and families as well, and he's been a huge supporter and a right-hand man as well. He's been great. I'd also like to thank Helen Riley and Tim Moss in particular, and the officers as well, for the huge amount of work that's gone into this document, and I would therefore like to ask for approval from Cabinet. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Price. You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Agreed.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? The recommendations are approved. Moving on then to agenda item number 11, which is the Staffordshire History Centre National Lottery Heritage Fund Round 2 submission. Councillor Wilson, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everyone. This report brings the final business case for the Staffordshire History Centre and an update on the project's progress. The project received a Round 1 National Lottery Heritage Fund grant in September 2019 and passed the mid-stage review in December 2020. The Round 2 submission to the National Lottery Heritage Fund will be made on March the 1st this year. A corporate review of storage identified Unit QB at Beaconside in Stafford as a potential saving if alternative provision can be made for the archive service collections in the Record Centre. And I think you know this, it's come to Cabinet before, but this report considers the risks and issues for the Archive and Heritage Service and County Council, but it doesn't include the Record Centre. And this is because the business case is still being developed for the Record Centre. It analyses the options against the risks and issues and whether they provide a short, medium or long-term solution. The report considers the capital and revenue costs for each option over 40 years as the whole life costs for this asset. All options will require additional revenue provision and 3 out of 4 require capital investment. Option 4 is the one that we went with originally. That's the preferred option as this develops a long-term solution for the service and additional storage to support the release of Unit QB. During 2020, the project has been developed by the project team and project board with some external consultant support funded by the development grant. Additional consultation has taken place, mainly online, as we know, due to COVID-19. The new paperwork for the project was presented to the Heritage Fund on the 10th of December at the mid-stage review. The project has passed this stage with positive feedback, and the team are completing the paperwork for submission on the 1st of March. The planning application to increase storage to 4 floors will be submitted in February, having taken pre-application advice. Stafford Borough Council planners were keen to see a 4-storey storage extension, and we're liaising with officers to ensure that it's approved. We will receive a planning decision in May, and we'll inform the Heritage Fund prior to their consideration of our application. If we're awarded the grant, construction would start in summer 2022, and the new centre would open in autumn 23. And the reason we've come back to Cabinet for this is for 2 reasons: to demonstrate to the Heritage Fund that we have permission and commitment from the organisation, and to confirm the funding and ensure that we can make a delegated decision to receive the funding if successful. So, well, you clearly got the recommendations as part of the paper, and they are as follows. A, the round 2 application to deliver the Staffordshire History Centre is submitted to the National Lottery Heritage Fund on the 1st of March this year, which will provide additional storage, release the current QB archive out store, and support the property strategy. B, if the application referred to in recommendation A is successful, to authorise the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Families and Communities to accept the grant funding terms and conditions, and in consultation with the Cabinet member for Communities and Culture, myself, to deliver the project. C, the planned capital investment and project delivery costs of £6,332,000 are approved for the 4-storey extension of the Staffordshire Records Office, subject to confirmation of NLHF funding, and that this is added to the Council's capital programme. And D, that additional revenue provision is made of 0.196 billion for 2023-2024 to meet the additional costs of this property venture. Thank you, Leader.
And thank you for getting through all those recommendations. Quite a lot to get through. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Great report, Victoria, and it's one of a number that we've taken on this subject, I know, and it's one that I'm always keen to speak on. So I think it's incredibly important that we do preserve our historical assets, and this proposal and the preferred option make sure that we do that for the long term. So I'll be very pleased to support it. The only other comment I wanted to make is I do think it's important, particularly for those who don't know Stafford, to consider this project in the context of all of the other work that's going on in our county town as well. We have the investment in £20 million going into the Future High Street Fund and the Stafford Borough Council's contribution to rejuvenating the town centre. We have our work on reopening the Shire Hall, itself a historical gem of national significance. And I mentioned earlier the work that we're doing on the regeneration of the Eastgate Quarter, and I mentioned that in particular because this site sits on the edge of that Eastgate Quarter, and its redevelopment and making that site more accessible and more attractive for people to visit is really important as part of making sure that that area of the town is an attractive place for people to visit. As part of our aspirations for that Eastgate site, so that there is further and higher education going on there, I think having the opportunity for people to access this wealth of historical records about Staffordshire there in an easy, convenient way, and future-proofing it is something that we really should be in the business of doing. So I think that overall context is really important. This is not a standalone project. It is part of our aspirations for our county town. Hugely welcome it, and I'll be really pleased to support it.
Thank you, Councillor White. I think your points about the additionality to the county town as part of this investment are vital. This has been quite a journey, the work that's been done on the Staffordshire History Centre, and as Councillor Wilson said in her report, this is part of ensuring that people know that we are giving permission for this to move forward, and I'm delighted that we're able to do so. Councillor Wilson, was there anything you wanted to say to sum up before we take recommendations? You'll have to come off mute.
Once a week I do that, sorry. I would like to sneak into the agenda item my real thanks to the archives team and to all the officers involved for everything that they're doing and have been doing with this project. I'm really hopeful that we'll be successful. I'll revert to Cabinet in due course. Yes, this will be great news for Stafford's Eastgate regeneration, but also for the history of Staffordshire as a whole. So watch this space. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, Leader.
Aye.
Yes, Leader. Thank you, Arnie.
Aye.
And any against? Any abstentions? The recommendation is approved. Moving to agenda item number 12, Digital First, update and plan for the digital principle. Councillor Sutherland, we're with you.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I'm pleased to bring this update and plan for digital today. Bit of context, within Staffordshire County Council's 2018 to 2022 strategy plan, digital was identified as one of the key principles for the organisation, ensuring that as an organisation we were using technology and data to connect, inform and support our citizens. So Staffordshire County Council has an ambition to become a genuinely digital council for the 21st century. This ambition extends to working with our partners and to make Staffordshire a county where every citizen and business can flourish in this digital age. Ensuring an organisation like Staffordshire County Council continues to operate in a digital way as technology advances presents many challenges. However, rather than seeing digital as a problem that we need to mitigate, we must instead embrace the many strategic opportunities that digital can provide. The success of the past 4 years, as well as the pace of change and innovation seen during our response to COVID-19, has provided us with the opportunity to review the whole approach to digital. This review has resulted in the development of a new, ambitious digital strategy for the organisation called Digital First. This report proposes a new simplified strategy for the digital principles. Digital First aims to make the most of the opportunities provided by digital to improve the lives of our residents and support local businesses and the overall Staffordshire economy. To do this, Staffordshire First sets out a framework with 4 priority areas. They are digital citizen, improving how we connect, engage and communicate with our citizens through digital. This includes improving digital self-service and self-help tools to empower residents, increasing digital inclusion across the county and using digital to support our highways assets. Digital Council is embedding smart working and empowering our staff to make the most of our digital tools and resources. Digital Care is using digital to help our frontline teams, our most vulnerable residents and promote independence. Digital will also support the transformations in children and families and adult social care systems through the Virtual Social Care Project, promoting the self-use and help and assistive technologies, and also investigating alternative digital options for social care case management. And finally, digital economy, supporting local businesses, I've said, and our economy through the better digital access and infrastructure. So this will include continuing to develop the digital infrastructure strategic framework and implementing a digital community learning programme for skills and using digital to improve our local transport schemes. In addition to these priority areas, Digital First has identified 4 enablers that will be beneficial to ensuring that we can deliver this strategy. They are communications and marketing, i.e. promoting awareness of digital support and options both internally and externally. This includes linking in with the place branding for Staffordshire Work, information and governance and security, ensuring that we protect our data by using national best practice on information governance and cyber security, data and insight, using digital to improve how we analyse and use the data available to us and our partners, and finally, collaboration and integration, working with our partners across the network Staffordshire and the wider public sector to integrate data and ICT systems. At this point, I would draw your attention to paragraph 16 on page 127, as it provides a visual summary of the Digital First strategy. Within the delivery plan are 32 projects, and Appendix 1 on page 131 has details for each of these projects. The plan also includes how we'll embed continuous digital improvement across the organisation. Also included in the report under Appendix 2 is a detailed communities impact assessment. And again, you'll find these on pages 139 through to 156. And finally, governance, resource, value for money and legal implications are covered on 128. Leader, finally, before I move the recommendation, I would like to extend my thanks to the digital team for this important piece of work and their commitment to the digital agenda. And this will lead me to the recommendation of the report. I recommend that Cabinet note the progress made by the digital principle to date, agree a new strategy for the digital principle called Digital First, and agree the proposed delivery plan for Digital First, featuring the 32 projects and continuous digital improvement for the organisation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Sutherland. Moving any large organisation like Staffordshire County Council forward on the digital agenda is always going to be a big task and a challenge for many. But this is moving in the right direction. It represents the place we wish to be as an organisation. The mere fact that this meeting is being conducted digitally rather than in person is representative of the swift changes we've been able to make over the course of the past year. And I wholeheartedly support the work that you're doing and your team are doing, Councillor Sutherland, on the Digital First agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, Leader.
Aye. Aye.
Any against? The recommendation is any abstentions? Recommendation is approved. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you.
We don't go away because we're staying with you on the Integrated Performance Report 2020-21 Quarter 3. This is a joint report brought to you by myself and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Councillor Sutherland, if you could just lead off, please, and then I'll come in behind you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This quarterly Integrated Performance Report provides an overview of the County Council's progress, performance and financial position in delivering our strategic and delivery plans for the period October through to December 2020. This report covers notable successes within the quarter, whilst at the same time we continue to manage the huge challenge that COVID-19 presents to this council. At the end of quarter 3, the overall assessment of the council's performance and financial position is amber. There are some risks in adult social care and families and communities. Further details are included within the report and its appendices. The latest revenue forecast outturn shows an overspend of £587,000, and this compares with an overspend of 1.8 million at quarter 2. There has also been the use of 1.33 million of exit and transition fund, which was established in 2018-2019. For brevity, I will just highlight by title notable paragraphs within each directorate, if I may. Within Health and Care Directorate, of note is the local outbreak control on paragraph 7, the care market resilience, paragraph 10, the Council Supportive Communities Programme, paragraph 13, and Staffordshire's Joint Mental Health and Wellbeing Board, paragraph 15, and finally Staffordshire Warmer Homes, paragraph 16. From a financial perspective, the health and care forecast outturn at Q3 is a saving of 1.1 million. However, as I've said, there remains a range of high risk savings within this area, with the Directorate seeking alternative savings where necessary. In addition, the level of client debt is above target and work is ongoing to recover this. The financial impact of COVID-19 within this Directorate is 29.9 million. Of note, within families and communities, work is to progress its recovery plans, transformation and wider service delivery continues to take place across the service. During Q3, considerable work has taken place to support schools and early years settings in the management of outbreaks. This included provision for health protection advice, guidance, as well as visits to high-risk areas to support schools in minimising any impact on learning. By December 2020, the number of Staffordshire children in our care increased slightly to 1,268. That was up from 1,244 in September and is in line with the Children's Transformation Reprofiled business case. The number of children subject to a child protection plan is 662 and has remained relatively stable for the previous 12 months. This is just below the most recent national benchmark figures that came out. There is a forecast overspend of 2.4 million on educational services. This is due to SEND transport, increasing costs and demand due to increased use of single occupancy taxis. Positively, significant work has taken place to clear the backlog of overdue education, health and care plans, and the additional resource has resulted in 554 children with overdue assessments being issued with their plan since the project started last March. Within economy, infrastructure and skills, the Council continues to support local businesses to survive, adapt and continue to operate as part of delivering its 5-year economic recovery, renewable and transformation strategy. Importantly, this Council has worked closely with local districts and borough councils across Staffordshire to maximise the impact of available government funding. This includes an investment of £862,000 to complement investment by districts and borough councils from the additional restrictions grant, which will support activities such as training grants to employers, wage support for apprentices and financial support for small businesses to continue and thrive. During Q3, a range of business cases have been developed that enable the Council to secure investment from the government's Getting Building Fund. These include council-led projects such as the I54 Western Extension, the Skills Equipment Fund and the local Sustainable Transport Programme, and of course the Shire Hall in Stafford. Following feedback from residents and councillors, delivery of £5 million worth of extra highways investment and a further 2-year in-year investment in community highways priorities is well underway. In addition, the Council continues to respond to recent flooding and gritting operations throughout the adverse weather conditions. Moving on, of note within corporate services, a significant amount of corporate support has been provided to local outbreak control, and work has been underway to create a Staffordshire brand that will help to grow the economy and create more better paid jobs. As a result of this work, a new online event with almost 200 key stakeholders involved across the county and Midlands took place. In summary, within the corporate services, the impact of COVID was 5.5 million, representing an increase of 660,000 from Q2. This increase is due to the forecast loss of income in the registrar's area and the additional costs of continuing to use the county showground for mortuary facilities and equipment storage. Of note, within communities, the council launched its Doing Our Bit community fund grant in this quarter. The council awarded 109 local community groups with a total of £203,000, and this helped to support vulnerable older adults, children and families within our local communities. In December, this cabinet approved the council's communities delivery plan and informed the council's progress working with communities. The plan promotes social action to build capacity in the voluntary and community sector, as well as help the council to work in a more community-focused way. Of note, within digital climate control and workforce, work to reset the council's digital strategy that I've just outlined has taken place, and I'm delighted that it has been approved today. The digital team with the Digital Leadership Group are continuing to develop the programme to ensure that benefits are clear, that the programme supports delivery of this council's priorities. Within climate change, key activities this quarter included cabinet approval and the publication of the council's climate change action plan. As we know, activity is underway to commence the refresh of the actual climate change strategy, and an initial engagement with partners is also planned and will be facilitated with Keele University. To support Staffordshire communities to do their bit towards the reduction of carbon emissions, improved air quality, or help people to deal with climate change events, a new Members Action Plan Fund was launched in November. And I won't say any more other than say that it has been well accepted locally in Rugeley, and I think it's probably oversubscribed. And then moving on, within our workforce, the council continues to move forward with the delivery of learning and development commissioning plan. Contracting of our new learning experience platform, an online learning and development tool for our staff, is now complete and is due to go live in April. The delivery of our council's Manage development scheme also began, with over 400 managers signing up to take part. Significant work has also taken place to develop the council's forthcoming employer brand, aimed at both existing employers and new applications. And finally, within our capital programme, which is detailed on Appendix 5, the latest capital outturn is projected at 146 million, and this compares to 143 million at Q2, so more investment. This projection is fully funded, and the increase was due to reprofiling of Staffordshire Western Access and Lichfield Southern Bypass. Again, more detail within the report. And finally, the list of appendices that are included. I would like to highlight the Finance Q3 detail report. That includes a detailed summary of the government COVID grants received. And then I'd highlight revenue forecasts, Appendix 4. And this is something we started in Q2, where we've covered the COVID financial impact is set out across each of the cost sectors within each directorate. Before I move the report and hand back to your leader to sum up, we will be asking the council to note the cabinet notes and challenges performance and advises of any further information and or action required. And that, leader, if I may, concludes my introduction, and I hand over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Comprehensive as always. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for that report. I wanted just to highlight some of the areas within the children and families area that some that Mr. Sutherland alluded to, but give a little bit more detail and also bring them a little bit up to date to where we are now. The amount of children that we have in our care at this moment was mentioned, and I can say that as we stand at this moment, that number has now reduced to 1246. One of the other areas I wanted to talk about is the social workers in schools. We received 469,000 in funding from the Department of Education, and this was a scheme where we have been able to put social workers in seven schools, and what this will enable us to do, it will enable those social workers to work closely with the school, identify children that might in the future need an intervention, and help work better within that school and provide better outcomes for those children, and help to prevent any of those children that might end up coming into our care, as we're able to intervene much earlier. The COVID winter fund, which was approximately £2.2 million worth of grant from the government, we're at a stage now where we have almost reached the end of allocating all that out. We have provided £15 school meal vouchers for children entitled to free school meals and other children within the county, including care leavers, for the whole of the Christmas holiday period, and also for this February half term. We're actually now in. Also wanted to talk about the success of the Building Resilient Families and Communities programme, where we have helped almost 9,000 families, and we were able to achieve those targets well ahead of schedule. And lastly, but not least, of course, is also the support we've been able to do with the Emotional Wellbeing in Schools programme, which is enabling schools to provide effective mental wellbeing support in these really difficult and challenging times that we face. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for a very comprehensive report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of pieces that that aren't mentioned elsewhere in the Cabinet meeting, and some of which don't get the profile that that I think they deserve. The first has been in respect of the COVID challenge. There's been an extension to the local contact tracing that we do as a county council, picking up those that the NHS can't pick up, and dealing with those that we pick up ourselves through our own testing provision. And I'm proud to be able to say that we're just shy of 90% success rate in that, and I want to thank all those involved in doing that. I think it's a difficult, arduous job that requires a lot of detail, and it's being delivered. We've hit our 6 million items of PPE during that quarter, and we've delivered on PPE throughout the pandemic, and I'm grateful to the logistic expertise of all those involved. The other thing is about the adult social care infection control grant, which we've used to support the care market. Home care is increased in demand, and the care homes clearly are in a precarious position, and that 4.3 million was greatly welcomed. Some of the things that really are under the radar, which I think have made a big difference to the whole support that we have given the system in terms of this terrible tragedy, is the discharge from hospital. The whole discharge to assess scheme and reducing the delayed discharges of care everybody you speak to in the NHS have said we've done a commendable job to help that. And without that, the hospitals would be in a significantly worse position than the very difficult position they found themselves in. It's also worth saying that we have continued with a lot of public health programs that have nothing to do with COVID. For instance, the Stoptober campaign to help people stop smoking if they wish. And Mr. Sutherland, you mentioned the Warmer Homes initiative, where we put central heating into 200 homes. There's also linked to that the local authority delivery scheme, which will put insulation into people's loft spaces and solar panels, all of which will reduce fuel poverty and keep people more healthy in warmer homes. The real issue for me in terms of the financial position is the debt that we have incurred in the Health and Care Directorate, and we are working on that. We have a task and finish group which will result in there being fewer misunderstandings with the public as regards their financial obligation, and the debt will be reduced as a result. It's an excellent report. Thank you. And I just wanted to add these few issues which I thought were worthy of note. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Jessel.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you very much, Mike, for a very comprehensive report. By its very nature, it can't possibly cover every aspect, but certainly the key aspects of the work of the local authority. I'd just like to add that the quality of broadband has been so important to everybody because of the way we're working now, and that I'm delighted to say that the current voucher scheme, we've got 60 applications from rural communities. So whilst it's not in your report, it is something that as a local authority we're very keen to support. If I could it's just a matter of accuracy. On paragraph 65, it refers to activities now underway to commence the refresh of the climate change strategy. We have, as you know, just approved the climate change strategic development framework, and now we won't be developing a further climate change strategy. So it's just clarifying that we've now approved this development framework, and that includes that piece of work. But also, I'm absolutely delighted to say, as at yesterday, we've got 103 applications for the Climate Change Community Fund, which is a tremendous response. And I thank all councillors, community groups, schools, parish councils for their interest and support, and keep the applications coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Mr. Sutherland, as usual, for bringing such a comprehensive report, Mike. Thank you. I particularly welcome, Chairman, the additional funding to our highways. I have an extremely healthy mailbox, as we all do, Leader, on defects in my area. And as a council, we absolutely recognise that the importance of good, safe highways to the people of Staffordshire. And we recognise it by, in Mr. Sutherland's report, putting additional funding in there. I warmly welcome the additional funding. We absolutely have to continue to work on our highways. And I think that all of our mailbox spell out to us very, very clearly how important our highways are to our residents. So the additional funding, I can assure residents, will be spent, and will be spent very, very wisely and spent in the right areas. So it's another area, as Mrs. Jessel said, the thousands of services that we provide to our residents, This is probably the most forward-facing. It's the service that we all use, and I don't think, as far as we're concerned as a council, we can overestimate the importance of good highways to the people of Staffordshire. And it certainly is a key objective and will continue to be a key objective. Thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for the report, and I warmly welcome the additional investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. If I could just say a couple of words in summing up. I'd just like to point out that the Cabinet at Staffordshire County Council, whilst being recommended to note and challenge performance, it does it all the time. This isn't something that happens once a quarter where we go, oh, we've got to challenge ourselves on performance. We are continually challenging ourselves on performance, and Cabinet colleagues are all the time looking at the issues that matter to residents across Staffordshire, and I'm delighted that that is the case. I just wanted to also point out that this is, by definition, a fairly inward-looking report, but I would also like to make mention of the great two-tier and three-tier working that's gone on across Staffordshire during the past year. I think it's improved beyond recognition. And so thank you to everybody in the communities for their help there as well. So you've heard the recommendation from Councillor Sutherland. He said he was going to do a brief introduction. It was slightly more than that, but I'm going to now move that recommendation. All those in favour of the recommendation?
Aye. Yes, Leader.
Any against? Any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Moving on then to the agenda item number 14. What a long meeting this morning. We've got Supportive Communities Update and Delivery Plan 2021-22, brought to you by Councillor McMahon. Johnny, we're with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. This report asks you to consider the lessons learnt from the Supportive Communities programme, to note the achievements, and to agree the high-level aims for 2021. The Supportive Communities project was agreed in March 2020, and it's had a significant effect in supporting the voluntary sector and social care practitioners during the pandemic. It's part of the Strengthening Communities programme of 2018-22 in the strategic plan. The community's principle is to stay healthy and resilient and have the dignity of remaining independent in your community for as long as you possibly can. So we don't ask so much what is the matter with you as to what matters to you, and help you to fulfill that. And in doing so, it improves morale and for all. There's three prongs to this approach. One is the workforce, to take a more strength-based approach. The digital piece, to support communication with our residents and with our workforce and the voluntary sector. And I think this is an important piece. It's not just for residents, so that the workforce, through the work of Support Staffordshire and Skivvies, etc., can have some degree of comfort in the governance arrangements around the organisations that they refer to. And the community's principle of self-help and enhancing the community assets. And the achievements we've made are I think, are considerable. We've managed to signpost all those, 75% of those who get in touch with the Staffordshire Carers Contact Centre, either for advice or for community support, for things like social isolation, house cleaning and maintenance, transport, food and shopping. This is far better done within the community than under the aegis of the County Council. And I think that that is a success. I draw your attention to page 200 of the Cabinet Papers, figure 2, and those numbers which describe the success of what we've done in the community is an absolute minimum. It's only what we know of. It does not factor in the mutual aid group activity, which is significant. and it's only the first lockdown figures. Notwithstanding, these numbers are commendable. I would draw your attention to the community help points in particular. We established 18 of those, only 4 of which have had to close during COVID. They are in managed libraries and large community organisations, and have offered telephony support during lockdown. There's at least 2 in each district. It's integral to addressing the digital exclusion piece, and there's a workshop going on now in order to make sure that nobody is left out, despite the digital offer. So, I'm recommending that the Cabinet considers the lessons learnt for Supportive Communities Programme in 2020. And the main lesson that I think is learnt is that this works. That there's a very, very large community asset out there of people wanting to do the right thing and volunteering. And it's tapping into those assets is the right thing to do. And this reminds me of the NHS 5 ways of well-being. The acts of kindness are good for one's mental health. So it's a virtuous cycle of helping those in the community is clearly good for the person who requires the help, but it's also improving the morale and mental health of those who do the helping. And I think it's clearly the best way forward. Note the achievements of the programme so far. The 75% of those who get in touch who don't need our support but need to just have the support of the community, which I've already mentioned. The communities-based training for our officers, which has been had a good outcome, and people like it. The number of officers in the workforce using the digital offer is also impressive, and agree the high level of aims and priorities for the programme for 2021-22. And those high level aims are to widen the scope to allow all those who need our help to be part of the community offer, and not just the frail elderly, which is what it's confined to currently. Extend focus across the whole adult social care pathway. Extend scope to within our commissioned providers and wider partnership. And I would here particularly recommend our health colleagues. I think there's a lot of synergy here which could be really helpful to all. And continue to improve the digital and assistive technology offer. So in short, the communities are ready for this. And I think it's now incumbent upon us to give our professionals the courage to let go, give them the support to allow them to do what our communities are up for. I think in closing, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to Support Staffordshire in this, to Skivvies, to all those who've gone the extra mile, the mutual aid groups, particularly those that are hyper-local, which are parish size and below, iCare and iCount, and that's just part of a very long list. This agenda shows that everybody is pulling their weight and working together. So finally, Leader, I recommend that Cabinet considers the lessons learnt for the Supportive Communities Programme in 2020, notes the achievements of the programme so far, and agrees to the high-level aims and priorities for the programme in 21-22 as I outlined. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you so much, Dr. McMahon, for such an incredible agenda item. It really hits the spot. We've worked so successfully in collaboration with our communities. Look at our help points, our libraries, our community groups, all in the report. I can't speak highly enough for the achievements so far, so let's build on that if we can. We've achieved a great deal here in Staffordshire. We want to carry on to support our workforce elements even more now. The proposed priorities, which are obviously in the report under items 19 to 22, I won't repeat all that, but we need to work now to develop a best practice way of working. Adult social care workers have been doing this for some time. Now we need to think more about our other services. So I really welcome this paper wholeheartedly, and I really thank Dr. McMahon for all he's doing and for this report. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Dr. McMahon. And another great report. I mean, it's an enormous agenda today, but I can't help reflecting on how far down the agenda this is. I know it doesn't indicate the importance of the paper, but this could easily be a number one on somebody else's agenda another day. It speaks to our focus on communities and about joining up all of our efforts in terms of work with communities and strengthening communities, which I expect will be a growing theme over the coming years for us. The one other thing I'll just dwell on is your comment about being kind, being good for you, and I think we've all seen, particularly in the online world, which we've all been, I think, motivated to inhabit more often this last year due to lockdown. And you've seen this parting of the ways where sadly some people online have become less and less pleasant in the way that they have dealt with things, but far more people have just flooded the online world with kindness. And I think what this does is it harnesses some of that and allows that kindness to be directed and used to provide practical support. And I think that's wonderful. I look forward to seeing much more of this type of work in the future.
Well said, Councillor White. I'd just like to, in closing, echo Councillor Dr. McMahon's thanks to everybody for the work they've done in this. It's been really, really outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendation. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes, Chairman.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Moving on then, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to agenda item number 15, which is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. My recommendation is that the decisions I read out in a moment, taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers as detailed in paragraph 3, be noted. First decision was from the Cabinet member for Health, Care and Wellbeing in approving that the Council proceeds to consult with clients, carers and staff regarding the refurbishment of an older person's day centre in Lichfield to use for provision of services. Second, the Cabinet member for Health, Care and Wellbeing approval to passport the additional monies received from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government for the Disability Facilities Grant to the district and borough councils, and to enter into agreements with district and borough councils regarding the transfer of the additional monies. Third is that from the Deputy Leader and Cabinet member for Economy and Skills, approval to the amended heads of terms for the purchase of the former Magistrates Court in Stafford, and well done for that. Number 4 is the Cabinet member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, approval in principle to the Staffordshire Flood Risk Management Plan, measures detailed in Measure Development Tool for 2021 to 2027. That's quite a mouthful. So the recommendation is as given, ladies and gentlemen, that it be noted. Everybody noted it?
Noted.
Moving on then to the forward plan of key decisions. The following items are all taking place in March. Capital Programme for Schools 2021-2022, brought to you by Councillor Price. Highways and Transport Capital Programme 2021-2022 by Councillor Williams. Holiday Activities and Flood and Food Programme by Councillor Sutton. Protect and Prepare Board, brought by Councillor Wilson. In private in March, waste disposal arrangements in the north of Staffordshire from 2025, brought by Councillors Jessel and DeVille. Again in private in March, the Household Waste Recycling Centre update, brought to you by Councillors DeVille and Jessel. Moving forward to April, in public, we've got the Integrated Performance Report 2020-21, brought to you by myself and Councillor Sutherland. We've got the Staffordshire Community Learning Annual Self-Assessment Report 1920, brought by Councillor White, Councillor White. And then moving forward to July 2021 in public, the Child Exploitation and Missing Children and Young People Service brought by Councillor Sutton. It now falls to me to move the exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972, indicated below. I so move.